10 years ago, we had one of the most heinous crimes ever committed in this country by terrorists. And that particular day, as I recall, and certainly never forget it, is I was in my office in the morning when the first plane hit and it came across the news. All of a sudden, the second plane hits, and I had a TV in the office, and I called everybody into the office. I said, this is more than just an accident, and certainly everything after there, the details of that have been well documented, and of course the Pentagon, and certainly in the fields of Pennsylvania, those heroes that took that plane down that was headed for the Capitol. After that happened, I was presented a photograph here of the Twin Towers on 9/11 that morning, and certainly I cherish this photograph. And when we think about it, how could that ever happen? Over 3,000 people lost their lives, and it's something that we will never forget. And certainly myself, and having been into the office and having people come in and watch that on TV, certainly has left us scarred as we think about all of those innocent people that lost their lives.
On September 11th, 2001, it was an exciting day for me because it was my birthday, anticipating, coming to work, enjoying, getting together with my coworkers. And then we hear the mayor call out from his office, and he said, "Girls, I think you better come in here." And as we walked in, I remember looking at the TV and seeing the second plane hit the second tower. And I was totally shocked, not knowing what was going on, wondering what's happening. Eventually we all sat there, watched what happened, and realized that we were under attack. And believe me, that is a day I will never ever forget.
September 11, 2001. I remember the day as if it was yesterday. I was in my office. I was actually getting ready to go to a meeting in Harrisburg. I remember it was an important meeting, but now I actually don't remember what it was going to be about. As I started to get ready to leave for Harrisburg, people came running in, turned on the television, and a plane just flew into one of the towers. And certainly, we didn't go to Harrisburg. I went and put on the television, and I couldn't believe what I was watching, that a plane actually flew into one of the towers. Being from New York City, I was very familiar with the towers. Drove by it I don't know how many times in my life, and it was, at first I thought it was just an accident, and then of course when the second plane came a short while later, we knew it wasn't an accident. We knew we were under attack, and certainly that changed life for all of us. Our generation will always remember the 9/11 attacks, as my father or my mother, I'm sure, remembered the Pearl Harbor attacks.
On September 11th, I remember waking up that day and thinking, what a gorgeous, beautiful September day. It's just one that I'll never forget. The skies were so blue, and the air was crisp, and it was just a nice day. I remember getting in my car, getting to work, and just going through my normal routine, and all of a sudden, I just heard all this talk and yelling and what was happening. And I was making my way down to the mayor's office, actually, and an associate came out and said a plane just hit the World Trade Center. And when I actually got down to the mayor's office, we were all gathered together as co-workers in with the mayor, and he had the television on, and then we saw the second plane actually hit. That day, we didn't even work. We all went home. We got with our families. We wanted to find out where they were. We all got together, and of course, everyone was just talking and crying and praying and just all the events that followed. And one thing that I do really remember is the unity that I felt as an American. I've never seen, and we haven't seen it since, unfortunately, the absolute togetherness as a nation that, hey, You know, you just kick the red, white, and blue, and we just don't take that laying down.
When I first heard the news, it first broke to me. I got a phone call from my parents telling me to put on the television and let me know what was going on. I put the TV on. Obviously, I saw the planes crashing into the building. My first concern, my first thought was of the thousands of people that must be dying. At the first, I really didn't think about the firefighters or the police officers because I wasn't aware about how the firemen and the police officers ran in the building. I was actually a Philadelphia police officer at the time. I had a couple years on the job, about 2 years at that time. My phone rang probably about 10:30. They told us to report to work immediately. When we got to work, we were advised that we wouldn't be working extra hours that day. So I think we worked at 12 o'clock that night. Also that day at Philadelphia, they asked us for volunteers who would be willing to go to New York for 9/11 as it was happening. We did have a roll call. A lot of us did volunteer to go if they did need us. So I know Philadelphia Police Department had probably about 1,000 guys or maybe more ready to respond. All they had to do was give us the signal. We didn't respond. They didn't need us. However, I know Philadelphia sent a lot of fire department. They sent their Ladder 1, which is their heavy rescue unit. I know they did respond.
Actually, I was at work, and I remember it distinctly because I got a phone call from someone, I won't name their name, but, "Barbara, are you watching television?" I said, "Well, no, I'm working." "Tell the mayor to turn the television on. The Twin Towers was just hit by a plane." And I'm thinking aviation accident, I'm not thinking terrorist. And I said, "Wait a minute, you really want me to go in and tell the mayor that you're watching TV while he's working?" And with that, I went in and told the mayor, and we turned on the TV, and then we watched together. Everybody from the office came in. And I was like, I wouldn't even call it shock, I call it disbelief. Well, first of all, I thought it was an aviation accident. I had never thought of terrorism until the second plane hit. And I was outraged. I was angry and shocked and more proud than ever to be an American.
On September 11th, 2001, I was employed at the Bensalem Township Fire Marshal's office. I was actually taking a class in Newtown Township. It was a hazardous material class when I received a phone call from a fellow firefighter saying, "Hey, did you notice that the World Trade Center just got hit with a plane?" I mentioned to the other people in the class, including Fire Marshal Ken Hopkins at the time. He was with me. We went to see a TV, and actually when we got into the office and watched the television is when we saw the second plane actually hit the Trade Center. So it was pretty emotional. We sat there with a group of 15 or 20 firemen and a few police officers and a few paramedics all in this class, and we watched everything take place. We were all calling our families to make sure everybody was safe. Right after September 11th, I guess it was probably later on that month, or might have even been early October, myself, Sergeant Bob Race from the Bensalem Police Department, and Detective Dave Nieves traveled up to New York City. One of the firefighters, firefighter David Fontani. I remember his name, remember his face from the pictures. We went up and actually went to his service. There was thousands of firefighters, police officers, paramedics there. The church was packed. We actually had a chance to walk through Manhattan. The police officers that were securing the area actually let us get close. We actually saw the firemen working on the big piles, if you remember, and working by hand. It was really touching, actually. You get to see it on TV, but to physically go up there and see it firsthand, it was something that I'll never ever forget.
You know, as we think about that day, 9/11, here it is 10 years later, and it's something that we will never forget, and hopefully all Americans will never forget that day and know the martyrs that gave up their lives for us.
As we come up on 10 years, the anniversary of that day, I kind of, every single birthday I have, I reflect on that day. I mean, I remember the tragedy and how we came together as a country. Everyone came together and showed their patriotism. And it's something I think that we need to look at once again and pull together again.
Hopefully that'll never happen again. We've got to maintain our military, and we've got to maintain our homeland security. And we've got to do it just about at all costs, because freedom doesn't come cheap and it doesn't come free. And people have to realize that there's a price for freedom, and many of our ancestors have worked to maintain that freedom, and we have to keep that. We can't be so petty about certain things, and you have to realize that there's some things that you have to pay a price for, and certainly freedom is one, and we have to maintain that. We have to remember that if we don't ever want that to happen again, and we don't want our kids to have to go through that, or their kids, that we have to maintain vigilance and make sure that our homeland is protected.
And I think our lives have forever been changed. Personally, you know, it's frightening, and as a country, it really brought some solidarity, but it's also brought some division as well. So I'm hoping that with this type of commemoration, it can bring closure. I think that it's something that, gosh, we'll never forget in my generation. So just be thankful every day for your family, your friends, and just feel blessed, because we live in the United States of America.
To this day, my perspective of 9/11, it still hasn't gone away. Anytime I see that the airplanes crashing into the building, or you see people jumping from the building, it gives you chills up and down your neck. It makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck. My thoughts right now is, after these two wars, Afghanistan, Iraq, I just think of all the soldiers out there. We actually have men and women that serve in this police department, and I'm just thankful for them, and I'm thankful for the guys that gave the altar sacrifice that day, to the fire guys, to the police officers, to the first responders that gave the altar sacrifice and died in line of duty. So they'll never be forgotten as far as I'm concerned.
In retrospect, I actually don't think of 9/11 a lot. I mean, it's just a constant. It's just part of the fabric of our society. When I think about it, I get angry again. And I think a lot more of our mortality and how much we owe to all of our emergency responders, police, fire, EMS, paramedics, whatever, and our military. And I don't understand how any government could embrace people doing things like this to innocent civilians. I find it appalling.
Today, 10 years later, the fire service itself has changed a lot since September 11th. When it first happened, the community, everybody was really close to the fire companies. A lot of firemen died that day after the attacks. And till this day, people are still really close. They kind of feel that bond with the firefighter. Since the firefighters, the pictures of them run into the building, it still touches a lot of people. Since that day, we've changed how we do things a little bit. We're now really focused on training, terrorism training. Never before, 10, 15 years ago, the fire department didn't even think of that. That was a military thing, a police department thing. Now the fire department is involved with trainings on weapons of mass destruction, certain type of hazardous incidents if someone's using some type of agent to harm people. So we've definitely changed. We've also looked into building construction. Nobody thought in a million years the Twin Towers were going to fall like that. It's a big part, whether you're a career fireman or you're a volunteer fireman. We have plenty of them in the community. They all get this training to make sure we're safe if something ever happens again locally.